Greetings and welcome to Old Drunken Discography. This week's panel is Tim,
That's me, as always.
Bill,
Howdy.
and myself, Jason. Each week, one of us selects an artist to bring to the panel for everyone to listen, discuss, and rank the studio albums. We'll also be mentioning, but not ranking, some notable non-studio album releases along the way. This week, it's Tim's pick, and he chose Queens of the Stone Age. If you like this content, be sure to hit the thumbs up. Really helps the channel out. Consider subscribing to follow along with us. It's much appreciated. One thing of note is this is the first discography we have done since we have previously reviewed a new album, being in Times New Roman last year, and then deep dive the full discography afterwards. So it was fun to revisit that album. It's Tim's pick, which means he controls the slap button. If you don't know what the slap button is, well, stick around, you'll find out.
Oh yeah, you'll find out.
Okay.
Anything else? Are we ready to start?
Personal histories.
Yep, personal histories.
New band for both of you guys, right?
Well,
Oh yeah, never heard of them ever.
yeah,
Wow.
that's
Okay.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I
Okay.
I played a lot of Rock Band, and Go With The Flow was in Rock Band, and No One Knows was in Rock Band.
3s and 7s as well, right?
I think that was maybe Rock Band 3. I can't remember.
Okay.
But, so
Okay.
I in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, I was already like off the mainstream, so I wasn't paying attention to radio or any of that stuff. So a lot of my 2000s bands that I got into was because of Rock Band. If I heard a couple songs like The Hives, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. The Crooked Vultures, Queens of the Stone Age. So I checked out Songs for the Deaf back in the day, but never like heard anything else previously or after until we reviewed In Times New Roman. That's my history.
Okay.
Actually, so mine is not super dissimilar from that one. Songs of the Deaf is the album that I'm probably most familiar with songs on. I feel like of all their albums, that one probably had the most songs played on the radio. If I had to go on a limb and guess, I do know some of the songs I was listening to when I was listening to Lullabies to Paralyze. A couple of those songs also was like, okay, I remember hearing that song. Like, and I think also one off of Era Vulgaris I might have also heard as
Sure. Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from that, though, definitely the first two albums were relatively didn't know much about, and especially the later stuff as well didn't know much about. But that's say 2017, and well, I wasn't here when you guys reviewed 2023 albums. That's when I wasn't listening to as much radio as actively, and
Sure.
plus my radio kind of cuts off with what I listen to rock wise about 2011, 2012. So wouldn't have had as newer songs on it.
Okay.
Well, you knew more
Yeah.
than me.
So I found. Go say it again. I'm sorry.
I was like, he knew more than me because I didn't recognize any singles after Songs of the Deaf.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I found this band in the year 2000. I found a fun little summer record called Rated R. And then I eventually ended up seeing them live right before Songs for the Deaf came out. I actually saw the first show from the first tour that Dave Grohl played with them. And still one of like the heaviest bootleg shows of their career. And I was there, and it was kind of life-changing. And then the album came out, and I've been just a first-day buyer ever since. There was one album I didn't buy on the first day, but I had, life things going on. But I eventually did get it. So,
Well, I mean, I was aware.
Seen them live a bunch of times. They're a great band.
I knew who Josh Homme was because I'm a fan of Rancid, so I knew who he was, but we don't want to get into that. First album. So, 2 album covers.
Yeah.
Either one of them
the
could get you
first
flagged on YouTube.
So yeah, originally came out on Man's Ruin for the vinyl, which is a now defunct label that had a bunch of really cool stuff. And then Loose Groove, which was Mike McCready's label, actually put out like the CD version and was the main like license holder.
Good old McCready.
Yeah. Yeah, not many people realize it. I know they're synonymous with the Palm Desert, Coachella, Southern California sound. But Queens of the Stone Age started in Seattle.
Really?
Their first lineup actually consisted of Matt Cameron and John McBain, also known as the Wellwater Conspiracy. John McBain, of course, was in Monster Magnet, and Matt Cameron is, a shoe-in for a two-time Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member. So, yeah, their first show was at the OK Hotel, which was the place where Smells Like Teen Spirit was debuted. Very much a Seattle band. And that comes from Josh having joined the Screaming Trees. Obviously, after Caius broke up, Josh moved to Seattle, joined the Screaming Trees. That's where he met Brody Dow on the Lollapalooza 96 tour. That's going to come up a little later. But yeah, eventually, the album it's just two people on this album. Josh is doing the vocals, he's doing the bass, he's doing the guitar, and then Fredo Hernandez on the drums was the last Caius drummer. So in many ways, this is, from the ashes of Caius kind of thing.
Okay.
But already, like when you could say Matt Cameron was your first drummer, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I could go down song-wise and stuff. There's, I really hashtag it. Fucking love this album. You start with Regular John, top song contender. And if you guys did your homework in a little later, you'll know that Josh, up to that point, thought that was their greatest song they had ever written. That says something. Avon started off as a desert session song. That'll be a trend for the first few albums, actually. If Only was the single, and I really love how it's just a catchy little song, and I love how it bookends where it starts with guitar, and then the drums, and then the bass, and then at the end, the bass is the first to cut out, and then the drums, and then the guitar. So it kind of like mirrors itself into like a sandwich. It's a really interesting song structure on that. Walking on the Sidewalks, top song contender, You Would Know, is a personal favorite. I love that guitar riff. I love the pauses. I love the weird sound effects. On the bonus track Addiction, you get 3 bonus tracks. The first being The Bronze, top song contender. How to Handle a Rope, top song contender. This album just goes on and on and on, and I think it's great. Mexicola is great. Hispanic Impressions is a nice little instrumental that's kind of funky, kind of dopey, I guess. I don't know. You Can't Quit Me, Baby's a great song. These Aren't the Droids You're Looking For was the second half to The Bronze. Those were originally released on a split EP with Beaver. That was also on Man's Ruin. All the Man's Ruin stuff is gold. Give the Mule What He Wants was the single for the reissue. This came out on I've got a Records version. This is the only one I don't have an original of. Spiders and Vinegroons used to be like their walkout tape. That's what would play as they're walking out onto stage. And then I Was a Teenage Hand Model is kind of like the standout on this album, where it's really experimental and doesn't necessarily fit with the rest of the album. And then it kind of goes off into Spaceland. You also get an interesting, if you guys remember Answering Machines, there's a phone message on there from Nick Oliveri, and if you who of course was in Caius, and if you listen carefully, it's the message where he's like going, "Yeah, I'll join your band. I like what you're doing here."
But he's
So
not.
that becomes
He's not on this album though, right?
Josh
he
is
starts
playing
on
the
Rated
bass.
R, yeah. Okay.
Credited as Carlo von Sexron.
All right.
And Carlo will join the Eagles of Death Metal later. So Carlo's got a life of his own, but Carlo is Josh.
All right, Bill, you want to follow that up?
Yeah, I can. So starting here top to bottom here, regular John. My comment was it was kind of like a weird techno with it. Um, it wasn't bad. I thought they had a better intro later on in their discography, or maybe a couple better intro songs. Um, then we got to Yvonne, which honestly I thought was all right to good.
Okay.
Like kind of stuff they're doing here. If only I like the guitar solo a lot in that song. That was a good tune. A question I had with this album that either one of you might be able to help. I mean, I know it's not new for 1998. 1998 albums, was it common to really try and hammer down left right sounds in listening headphones? Because I know compared to a lot of other albums listened to, this one seemed like it was really pushing a lot of left right stuff at times.
I mean, the Beatles,
which was not common at the time. This is like 1998. It was all new metal, Korn, Limp Bizkit, and or Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera. Yeah, this was almost like a real callback to like the early 70s Stooges. There's a lot of like Ramones on this album. There's also a lot of like 80s new wave kind of in there. Like this is where they kind of like coined the term robot rock.
There you are, making up genres again.
I didn't make it up. I've heard about robot rock for 25 years now,
yeah, they made drone rock after that, or drone metal.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So that was just something I noticed with a lot of these. Walking the Sidewalk, agreed. Definitely a top song contender. You would know. I'm not a kind of fan of like I believe it'd be the pre-chorus part of it. And then because it goes to the repetitive, you would know. It's like, it's.
Yeah, there's a lot of repetition on this album, almost to the point of hypnotic.
Yeah, which that's actually later song I mentioned, like almost hypnotic, just because it's like, and it's not that I don't like repetition, and they do use it effectively at times. I felt like on this song though, it was a little bit just too far past for at least my taste.
Okay.
Like they would have just limited a little bit more.
And so you're thinking You Would Know runs it more than, like, say, a Mexicola?
Well, I'm getting that to later.
Okay. Okay.
Remember I mentioned
I feel you.
I mentioned the hypnotic. That's where the hypnotic comes in.
Sure. Okay.
The playlist I listened to actually had the bonus tracks intermingled in as well. Bronze, I thought it was good. Wasn't super standout-ish, but I thought it was a good solid track nonetheless. How to Handle, again, I would think definitely top song contender. I love the intro, and I love the vocals and how they intermingled everything together on it. I think probably best song on the album for me. Mexicola, Hypnotic. It's got a lot of similar sounds from the prior track. I noticed just listening to them back to back, and it was, yeah, a little bit repetitive as we kind of mentioned here beforehand.
It works really well live.
And I could definitely. I mean, there is a definitive difference between listening to something live versus like, all right, I'm sitting here listening through the whole album, like, okay, and how many times am I going to hear this slide? Okay,
Sure.
like 4, 5, 6, even like 8 times is okay. Once you get more than that, it's like, okay.
Even then, though, like one of the things that attracted me to this band, and yeah, I found them a little bit after this album, but even 498, it applies to. Like where, most bands, if they were repetitive, it's just because they're like repeating a chorus too much or whatever.
Yeah.
Where this band literally took a measure and just
repeated it.
beat it into the ground.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I mean, I could go off about this album. The drums throughout the whole thing, but especially on Mexicola, they're so dumb and simple, but done so well.
Actually, that was kind of interesting. It's like, so you say that the drums it was one person on drums and one person doing everything else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even production, like the production on this is fantastic for being self-produced.
Oh gosh,
sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some bands that do self-production that do not do it well at all.
Yeah.
Well, and it looks like Joe Parisi produced it. He does a whole bunch of stuff. He's worked with Caius, the Melvins, Tool, Chevelle, Apocalyptica, Queens of the Stone Age, Coheed and Cambria, Tomahawk, L7, the Jesus Lizard, Parkway Drive, New Model Army, Bad Religion, Pennywise, Judas Priest, Soundgarden, Stamina with a 1, Weezer, Avenged Sevenfold, Nine Inch Nails, and Slipknot.
All right, my bad. It was rated R that was self-produced.
Yes. So. I mean, that's a pretty solid. That's a pretty solid resume. Yeah, okay.
I take back what I said about the production.
No, it's all good. No, I love the production on this album. It's very simple. It's very dry. Yeah, 2 people, you're not going to be able to do too much, but they do just enough that.
I mean, my overall comments, as we already talked on the left, right, I thought it was actually a very solid debut album. Very simplistic, but for them, I feel like it works.
That actually is going to lead right into what I'm going to say, because we talk about Def Leppard being 6 years behind. These guys are 6 years ahead for 1998, because all that, one part of this, and Tim has talked about it, it's got that spacey stuff. If you take all that out, it's just garage rock, which is just that revival in the early 2000s that the Strokes and all the it was basically just the 70s. These guys were doing it in 1998, which was really interesting. While everybody else was like post-grunge or new metal, these guys were like ahead of the curve, per se. The opening line, though, "Who are you, girl? Who are you, boy?" That's a solid 1 out of 5 rating for the opening lines. This is Discography. I like the guitar tones on the opening track. It's on par with what I remember from Songs of the Deaf. It's very lo-fi and Sonic Youth sounding almost. But I wasn't a fan of the vocals. I think Josh sounds much better later. Avon, he instantly sounds much better. Comes out hard, kicks ass. Same with If Only. Walking on Sidewalks is great. I love the lines "drink wine and screw. I knew someone else before I looked like I knew someone else before looked a lot like you. You would know I love the vocal delivery. It was dragged out. It sounded lazy, which was totally cool. It matched the lyrics that were very like discontent. The version I heard on Spotify, it had the bronze. It was spacey. It rocked. My favorite track so far. How to Handle a Rope. It rocked. Album started to pick up the pace. The breakdown at the end was much appreciated. Mexicola was a little heavier than I was expecting. It started out slow, but starts to kick ass pretty early. Hispanic, the intro alone makes it a top selling contender. Uh, I love the drumming. Crap, it's an instrumental. It's a damn good instrumental, though. My notes are very stream of conscious. You Can't Quit Me, Baby. Interesting tones on the bass. I was digging it. The chorus, You're Solid Gold, I'll See You in Hell. Love the solo as well. The weird space tones, top song contender. Okay, this is when I figured out it was some weird re-release because now I got These Aren't the Droids, which was fine as an instrumental. But I'm going. This one I went to the 98 version. Give the Mule was cool as hell. Teenage Hand Model, it was weird and spacey. It had some weird tribal drums. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't a good closer. The fact that it came out in 98 is pretty crazy because a lot of it sounds like that minimalistic garage rock revival that's around the corner in a few years. Kind of reminds me of White Stripes' earlier stuff from the same time period, minus the additional with the spacey shit. It's just less bluesy and more acid space rock with the tones of the guitars and the bass. Solid debut album though, still sounds like Queen's. It's like a stoner rock album that was made in space. It's really interesting.
Sign me up.
All right. Anybody else got anything to add besides Tim? Because he'll talk about this album for 2 hours.
Yeah, so the last thing I'll mention then is that for the tour for this, when they did get Nick into the band, they were opening for Ween. And I think that's going to play into a lot of what follows next.
Yeah, I could see that. All right. I added a little color code section here now because whenever we talk about the color code tells all, people know what we're talking about. All right. It automatically goes in the first place because it's the first album we talked to. Give us a like, subscribe, let us know down below what you think of this album. And stick around because tomorrow we're talking rated R. Well, tomorrow for you guys, like 5 minutes for us. So be safe.
We'll even be in the same shirts.
Ooh. And make good decisions, like showers on Wednesdays and Saturdays.
And every other Tuesday.
Why not?